Well, we're going to go ahead and just get started. We have a lot to cover in this hour. First, I'd love to just introduce myself. My name is Kayla Ishizaki, and I'm a program manager for our HR talent management team here at Juniper Networks. And so before we get started, I just have a few quick announcements. One, the session will be recorded and it'll be shared via email with everyone who was registered. And during this discussion, we would love to hear from all of you. And so we hope that you use the stage chat on the right side of your screen to send messages, comments, and questions to all the panelists and to one another throughout the session. And now I am so excited to kick off today's event, Inspiring Women in Tech, advice from 4 women leaders, sponsored by Juniper Networks. And for those of you who don't know Fairygodboss very well, it's the largest career community for women. Millions of women visit Fairygodboss for career connections, jobs, community advice, hard to find intel about how companies treat women, and virtual events like this one here. We are so thrilled to be joined by 3 leaders at Juniper Networks. Sharada, Swetha, and Deepti, welcome, and thank you for being here today. We cannot wait to hear from you. So I'd like to first do is just take a minute to get to know each of you and have each of you introduce yourselves. We'd love to hear of what's going on in your life, both personally and professionally, and what you do in your role today at Juniper Networks. So if you don't mind, Sharada, I'd love to start with you.
Okay. Thanks, Kayla. I'm very excited to be here. So my name is Sharda Yeluri. I'm a Senior Director of Engineering in Juniper Networks. I'm responsible for building the ASICs that are used in our PTX platforms. I've been in Juniper for over 22 years. So when I joined, my son was like 5 months old and my daughter was born 2 years later. Now she's a senior in college. So that kind of tells how long I have been in Juniper. So for them, me being in Juniper was a constant, like growing up. But thinking about my work at Juniper, it is nothing but constant. It was pretty exciting. First, I joined as a individual contributor. I did a lot of coding and a lot of projects. Then I moved on to management, started with design management with a small team. And now I manage the next generation ASICs that are used in our Juniper PTX platforms with a team that's spanning across the globe. I'm pretty excited to be at Juniper and in general to be in the networking industry. And it's never boring. And then I hope to continue to work here for a while. And outside of Juniper, my passions are blogging is one of the passions, which is something that I recently picked on like about 1.5 years ago. And it's going pretty well. And I blog about technology trends and career advice, life lessons, anything I can think of. Originally, when I first started, I was pretty scared. I was like, okay, I was very hesitant about opening myself in front of so many people online. But as I got used to it, I started realizing that it's not only benefiting others, but I'm also becoming a better person through my blogs where I'm able to introspect myself more. So I hope to continue to do that. And I'm hoping that, with my blogs, I'm inspiring other women leaders to also share their voice and get out of their comfort zone. And other than that, I'm an empty nester and I also like hiking and then cooking for friends and inviting them and other stuff. So I think it's not too long. I'll stop here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing, Sharada. And wow, over 20 years at Juniper Networks. I think we have a lot to learn from you. So thank you so much for sharing. I think if you're okay with it, let's move over to Swetha, if you'd like to share. And Swetha, I think you may be on mute.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. And thanks, Kayla. Thanks for that wonderful introduction. Nice to hear from you, Sharada. Nice to see you, Deepti. I'm a senior director of engineering at Juniper Networks. I manage the customer solution test team at Juniper. So my team is responsible for testing the service providers, the enterprises, and the cloud customer solutions that Juniper provides. So I'm also an old timer at Juniper. So I started in 2007. And like Sharda, my daughter was born in 2010. She's almost 13 now, and Juniper has been a constant in my life. Though I worked on various different projects at Juniper. I have a BTech a BTech in computer science from Bangalore in India. Though I'm originally from India, I've called Silicon Valley, California, my home for 15 years now. I live here with my husband and my 12 and a half year old daughter. In my spare time, I like to hike, I play the piano, I like to listen to a lot of music, I like to cook, and of course, work at Juniper. That's from me. And I'm very excited to be a part of this panel.
Absolutely. We're so excited to have you, Swetha. Thank you for sharing. And we will move over to our last panelist, Deepti.
Hi, everyone, and thanks, Kayla. I am Deepti, and I've been with Juniper for over 4 years now. And at Juniper, my team and so I had corporate and portfolio strategy here. What that means is my team and I work with leaders, our CEO, the CEO staff, as well as leaders across Juniper, to really create a vision, a long-term vision for the company, and determine what businesses we build, or what capabilities we invest in, what market segments we play in, and as well as mergers and acquisitions and partnerships. All of this to align with Juniper's long-term success. So I've along with that, I am a mom of 2 young children, 9 and 5, who are extremely energetic and increasingly opinionated. So I have my hands full. I also, when I get time, my two passions, I think the ones that I'm really pursuing right now is I want to be a yoga teacher at some point. It's a work in progress, but that is one thing that's constant in my life, is yoga, and the other is dance. I love dancing. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing, Deepti. We have such great experience spread across all 3 of you. And so we're excited to dig in a little bit more. And for just a quick note for all of you who are just tuning in right now, I'd just like to remind everyone that we're going to be answering questions that come in directly from all of you as well. So just as a reminder, please submit your questions in the chat on the right side of your screen. And we're going to do our best to respond to as many as we can. But turning back to our panelists, Swetha, Sharada, and Deepti, thank you all for sharing a bit about your role at Juniper as it is today. What I think everyone would love to know about is a little bit more about your unique journeys and stories that have brought you to where you are today. So I'm sure the audience would love to hear how you have grown your career as women in technology, and how other women or Juniper Networks has aided in your career growth in the technology industry. So maybe we'll start with Swetha. And Swetha, I believe you may be on mute.
Oh, I'm so sorry about that.
No problem.
My journey started in 1999 when I graduated from Bangalore University. I joined Cisco Systems. So I did a lot of ASIC verification at Cisco. So I worked on some of their optical platforms. I was there for about 3.5 years. Then I moved to the Silicon Valley. I joined a startup which was actually building a chip for packet processing of both wired and wireless packets. So that was my second gig, and I did a variety of things there. I did ASIC verification. I even wrote a Perl parser, a CLI. You can name it. It was a very small team, so we got to do a lot of different things. We built like a very good product, but unfortunately the company did not do very well. So then I joined Juniper Networks from there. I started with solution testing for the PTX platforms. I did a lot of solution testing for some of our large cloud customers and some of these various PTX deployments. From there, all of this was mostly my individual contributor career. And then from there, I moved to the Junos Evolved project, which was the next gen Linux-based operating system for Juniper. So that was something where I decided to experiment with management. And started with I was one of the early members in this team. Started with a small team of 5 people that was responsible for testing the application side by side as the development happened. So started with this small team of 5 people, then we slowly grew into very different things. So this was again like a small startup within Juniper, where it was a team of a small set of people that were working on various different things. We decided to overhaul the way we did software development as well. So we built this continuous integration, continuous delivery pipelines, and we decided to work a little more in an agile fashion. So all of these new things happened, and I got into management. And then from there on, the journey began where as the OS evolved, my management journey also evolved. So I started working on various aspects of this OS, finally to see this running on routers that are running in some of our large customer deployments. It has been quite a journey. I would say there were a lot of new things to learn, both on managerial side, both on educating the various field-facing teams, the various internal teams about the new operating system, the look and feel of how Juniper software is going to feel. We try to keep it the same, but there's always a learning curve with something new. So it has been a very fantastic journey so far. I think one of the key things that I would like to point out is Juniper has always given me the opportunities, new things to learn whenever I ask for them. So it has always been that every 3 or 4 years, I go back to management and I say, okay, now this is mature. Now I want to do something else, So, and they've always given me those opportunities. So I think that is one of the reasons for my long career at Juniper, and it has been a very, very fulfilling one. So that's my story in a nutshell.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing, Sweta. And I hear a lot of parallels, even when Sharada was doing her intro, about the ability to try different projects and activities and kind of grow your career. And so I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. But first, maybe we'll go to Deepti. And Deepti, maybe if you'd share. Same
absolutely.
Question for you.
Absolutely. Growing up, I wanted to be a scientist or be part of an R&D team. So after my engineering, bachelor's and master's in engineering, I spent several years of my initial career in various R&D teams in technology organizations and companies. In fact, I was one of such roles was at HPE, where I was developing similar products to what we develop today at Juniper. And that's when I was very happy. I almost felt like I had my sense of purpose. In fact, I have so much respect for our engineers in what they do, because I have seen how much rigor there is in developing a networking product, right? It's, in my view, it's no less than rocket science. And, I was really happy, but I think the one thing that has helped me grow in my career throughout the years is asking questions when something doesn't make sense, right? And try to go look for answers. And so what happened was at HPE, they did a big acquisition at that time. And, because there were overlaps, as a result, our R&D budget was cut tremendously. And we were not doing any more cool projects, in my view. In my view, they were making all the wrong decisions. But honestly, it was just a long list of questions that I had. I just didn't understand why a company makes certain decisions when they do. And honestly, that was the trigger point for me to leave my job and go pursue a business degree. So that's when I, went to Kellogg and I got my MBA. And after that, I started working in strategy consulting to get the answers, essentially, to understand why, how a business thinks about growth, how they think about organizing the company. Coincidentally, it was the same consulting firm that was, advising HPE at that time. So I literally got to ask why you made those decisions. But having said that, it was an amazing time. I spent a lot of time in technology advising clients, but what I missed was the sense of ownership in long-term impact. You didn't see that in consulting, and so that's when I decided to join the strategy and corporate development team at Juniper. And ever since then, like I said, asking questions is one thing how I have grown. Juniper has really given me that safe space to ask tough questions, and not just to ask, but also given me autonomy and visibility to the extent they can in terms of finding answers for that, bringing back the answers, and listening to my suggestions, and of course pushing back, so that we can have a healthy discussion. So that's really been my journey so far, and I love every single part of it. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing, Deepti. And so, we've heard a bit about, where your careers are today, a bit about the journeys and what's helped you get to where you're at today. But all three of you are also in leadership positions yourself. And so what I think would be interesting to hear is throughout your leadership journey and your career, what have you done to ensure that you're lifting up the other women around you as leaders? And so if you're okay, maybe we'll start with Sharada.
Okay, thanks, Kayla. I believe first thing is that there are many perceptions and unconscious biases against women in tech, especially women leaders, right? And even though a lot of companies are doing educating people to understand, so they can understand better diversity, equity, and inclusion, these kind of perceptions are ingrained in the system, right? And the sad part about that is that sometimes even women leaders are also inheriting some of these perceptions as a side effect, right? That is something that I always continuously watch for it in myself, just to make sure that I don't have the same biases against other women engineers or other women in my organization. And I continuously evaluate myself. I encourage other women leaders also to do the same. So that way, we can truly build an inclusive culture, right? Then coming to how do we lift up other women in the organization, right? I'm always looking out for opportunities for people, for women engineers in my organization. And especially some of the women engineers, especially those with young kids, they often hesitate to take more challenging roles or go to that next level. It's not because they are not capable of doing it. They are probably most of the times, often they are the perfect ones for doing the job, but they think like by taking on those extra challenges or responsibilities, they are probably going to give up on the work-life balance. And they also think that if they have to ask for more flexibility or accommodation to fulfill their responsibilities, they might be seen as unprofessional, right? So some of these that's kind of it holds them back from moving up. So I kind of recognize that who might be having those kind of feelings, and I encourage them to ask for flexibility. I tell them to take on the responsibilities, and whenever possible I give them enough opportunities to move up. The other thing I notice is that a lot of women engineers and women leaders in general, they're highly competitive. I mean, the fact that they took on this tech major and then they're all working in the tech industry kind of tells them that they were driven at the college as well. But they are not, what do you say, they are not they're pretty shy in the sense they don't want to brag about themselves. They are not very insistent on asking for promotions or raises when it comes to that. So that's something we need to watch out for, all of the women leaders. Sometimes you look at many women engineers who are outperforming to some of their male counterparts. You find often the male counterparts often are little bit more forthcoming, or more open about their needs in terms of how they want to grow in the career, what they want, whereas women shy away from doing that. So you have to watch out for it. So I'll make sure that all the exceptional women in my group get recognized when it comes to promotions or rewards. And I have sponsored several women to highest technical leadership roles in Juniper. And this is, yeah, very important that, all of us women will look out for each other, and we make sure that our combined voice is heard loud and clear. That's the only way, whatever diversity, equity, or inclusion, all the change that companies have to make, we can make that happen pretty fast. I hope that kind of answers the question.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of great insights that you're able to share with us. Thank you so much for that. Same question for you, Deepti, if you don't mind.
Okay, absolutely. I mean, I would echo, what Sharda said. One thing is we may not be good at advocating for ourselves. I mean, I think it is known that we're not good at negotiating, but we are damn good at advocating for other women. And I would say that is the one thing that we can do, is if we are in a position, in a place where we can make some significant impact on a fellow colleague's career or a path, we should be doing that. And as a community, I think that is the one thing that we are good at, and we should keep doing that, is how can we lift other women. I would also say that as you think of your network or women in technology, it's not just about your company or where you're working for, but look around you, look in your networks outside of your company and see what you can do to even uplift women as a community. Whether that's coming from moms of your daughter's elementary school friends, or people you're meeting in your birthday parties, because you see like-minded folks everywhere, and see if you can go out and help women even outside of your company or your network.
Thank you so much for sharing, Deepti. And yeah, I'm starting to see some similarities in your approach to leadership and uplifting women from both Sharada and you, Deepti. One question it's a little similar is, what would be your number one piece of advice for other women who are looking to move up or maybe move into a leadership role for the first time? Deepti, do you mind if we stay with you on this one?
Absolutely. I think so. I was thinking about this earlier on, and I think one big difference is, as you move to a leadership role, it's not just about you or only about you. It's truly about what you can do with your team. So the team becomes really important. And as you move into a new leadership role, I know that we're all tempted to go make that 90-day plan or just get in work mode, figure out what you need to do. It's so important to just step back and, first of all, understand what truly motivates you. What is your motivation driver? And then, more importantly, understand what motivates your team. Because I'll tell you, for example, for me, one of my motivation drivers has been just learning new things. Just knowledge excites me. I like to learn. For others in my team, it could be things where they want recognition or they want control. Some of them find satisfaction in helping others or supporting others, while others are looking for, how can I get the most returns of my energy that I'm spending at work? So try to understand the motivation drivers of your team. And when you tap into those, that's how you can truly accomplish great things. Before, obviously all of us build plans and hit the ground running.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you, Deepti. We're going to move over to Swetha. Question for you. Both, how are you ensuring as well that you're lifting other women up? And what would be your piece of advice for women who are moving into leadership as well?
I think one of the important things that I personally have is the awareness of all the problems that women face, going through the journey myself, right? Started with a lot of self-doubt, lack of confidence, even in meetings. If initially, not anymore, but initially it had to be, I would play things in my head like 50 times before I said something, wondered if, is it the right point to make, or is it, whereas you don't see most of these things with your male colleagues. They are even if they're unsure, they're willing to speak, and they're like, so I think I'm aware of that, the thought process that's going on in people's heads. So I try to encourage, and talk to people, have try to build their confidence, and also try to give them a voice wherever I see this lack of confidence or self doubt or people. And some of my colleagues are like really really good, and it's really surprising, when you see that they are so hesitant to speak up and things like that. So that is more of the day to day part. But I also do a lot of one-on-one sessions with some of my some people who are interested in leadership, or who want to go ahead in their maybe in their technical careers, however it is, however they want to plan it. So I do talk about a lot of pros and cons. Leadership is you don't have your time for yourself anymore. There is a lot of your time that you need to spend with others, and you cannot time manage your thing completely. So you have to have a lot more. You have a lot more dependence on other people's schedules and things like that. So you have to be aware of the pros and cons of what you're getting into. So that is something that I typically try to coach people. Is this really what you want? And these are the good things about it, and these are some of the things where you may need to like do a little bit more extra, give up a little bit more of your personal time, and get into it. So those are the kind of things that you show both the sides of leadership to people, and then also work with some of the I see that there are people who are very interested in leadership, but they want to understand how to get the support from their families, right? Like, so there has been so that is, how do you navigate that, right? Maybe work it out with your partner or your spouse, and talk to them about how to time manage, and how to make sure they are contributing equally at home, or to some extent to help you grow in your career. So that is the kind of coaching that I typically try to provide in my one-on-ones. And yeah, so I think these are the various different things that I try to touch upon, and see how I can help other women who are interested in leadership, or who are interested in growing in their own technical fields. And apart from that, there are some very very wise women out there, like who have been there, done this. You can take some pages from their memoirs or from their books, which are very very useful. What you also see is that some very very accomplished women have the same insecurities, have been through the same journey, have had the same self doubt, but how did they overcome all of this, right? So that is something that I constantly try to read up, and try to share with my fellow women colleagues. So that's probably what, those are the different things that I try to do, and try to help people.
That's wonderful, Sweta. You had so many insights. Some of what I was hearing there is, one, understanding what that role of leadership looks like, how it's different from when you're an individual contributor. Also, I thought it was interesting that you hit on, it's just that self-awareness that's needed on, hey, is this something that I even want? Or do I think that leadership is just that next step for me? Or are there ways to be in my role as an individual contributor that actually fit better to my needs?
Yeah.
And right. And so that's really interesting to have to think about both of those. And then at the same time, remember that you're not alone. Many
Yes.
women have done this before you. And so look to books and to resources and to the other women around you to learn. Thank you so much for sharing with us, Sweta. Sharada, if you don't mind, if you had kind of one piece or two pieces of advice to share with women who are looking to go to leadership roles, what would that be?
Yeah. So first, let me start with how I became a leader. So it was kind of funny. So I was not even thinking about becoming a manager. I was happy coding hundreds of lines of code every week, and then yeah, my life was good. Then one day, my VP called me into an office, and he said there is an opening for a manager position. He asked me if I want to take it, and I have 5 minutes to decide. So I was like, okay, let's just go for it. Okay, like what is there to lose, right? So that's how I became a manager, with no training, nothing, right? So, and then as I went through the management role, like starting from a senior manager all the way to senior director, this like every day is a learning. It's a constant learning process, right? So that's true for everyone. Even the CEOs, they learn every day on the job, right? So and then I realized that I enjoy this more than the individual contributor role, having that impact, coaching others, and then like, letting them grow, delivering projects, all of that, like, they just drives me, like, every day, like to come to work, right? So my advice to others who want to get to the leadership is, the first thing is, usually we are the worst critics of ourselves, right? So we think that, we are not ready for this, and it is not the right time. We come up with many excuses whenever we have to transition to a role that we are not comfortable with. So usually many women, they shy away from the roles that have a lot of visibility and impact, thinking that they're not ready for it. So my answer is, there is no right time, there is no wrong time. If you think the leadership role is what you want to explore, and if an opportunity comes in front of you, just jump in. Like, just have faith in yourself and jump in and take that. And you might not be perfect first time. You'll be making mistakes. You might be making fool of yourself. And especially if you're transitioning from an individual contributor to a leader, you will also have some adjustment, both you and your team. They have to respect you as a leader. All of that takes time, right? But have faith in yourself, right? And stop judging, and stop worrying about what other people are thinking about you. That's when you'll do well. That would be my one piece of advice. I have many other things lined up, but I don't think we have time for all of those. So.
No, that's great, Sharada. I'm thinking of the Nike, that just do it, right?
Yeah.
Got it later. But I'm assuming all of you, right? Because taking that leap to go into a leadership position, no matter how much you had, maybe you had more than just a second to make a decision, answer. But no matter what, you're taking some kind of leap there, and we know that managing people, especially if you're new to it, it's not easy. What I'm interested to know is, how has Juniper Networks, or maybe a manager that you had in the past, really help you set up for success in this new role? What is the kind of support and how is that reflective of the overall culture here at Juniper Networks? And so with that, maybe we go over to Swetha, if you'd like to share.
I would call myself really, really lucky with my managers. I think I've had some fantastic managers. The first one has been a woman herself, a very accomplished woman who always took the time to, we used to have at least 2 one-on-ones every week. I mean, it was these were the initial days. So she, no matter how busy she was, she would take the time to sit with me and listen to me and put me in the right places wherever, and she would step back, like she wouldn't like try to, she would let me make my mistakes, let me, but at the same time, there was this one meeting where I just did it wasn't great. So during my initial days, and then later she said, don't worry, we all did this initially, like things like that. So that was a very, very good starting point for me. And and again, it goes both ways, right? So I have been a very vocal and a person who's shown her vulnerabilities to my manager, who has always discussed, had very, very open and honest conversations about what I feel, what I think, what I'm doing, what I should be doing, and all of those. So I've nurtured those relationships, and I think that is one of the things that has really, really helped me. And that is one piece of advice that I would let everyone try to build this relationship with your manager. Try to help your manager out, and they will help you in return to grow and to do what you want to do. So I think that is one. And Juniper has a culture of building trust. I think this fits really, really well in that, with that.
Absolutely. Sweta, I was thinking of the same thing of our Juniper culture of be bold. So be able to make mistakes and go for it, because we know that in that journey to innovation, there's going to be those mistakes around the way. And then also being in an environment where you can build trust and know that your team has your back and that you're going to be able to recover in the right way. So thank you so much for sharing that story. Same question for you, Deepti.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, my manager has been instrumental in my success here at Juniper. And before I tell you a little bit about how that's reflective overall, just about my role. What's unique is my team and I are not responsible for, let's say, a certain piece of product line or a very concrete piece of work. Our job is really to bring everybody together and move in a certain direction. So a lot of it depends on how influencing our peers and making sure that they're all marching towards the direction that Juniper wants them to go. So my manager, jokingly says, when the time is right, I like to throw them in the deep end, and I know that usually they'll swim back up. So the point is he has really set me up for success. Before pushing me in the deep end, to say that what's important is giving me the visibility that I need to just listen, learn, and absorb. So there's so many times I'm in meetings where I don't really have a role. I'm just listening in, I'm absorbing, I'm seeing how decisions are made and what the trade-offs are. And when I do that a lot, many times, that's when I gain confidence in really understanding what the problems are. That's when I can ask the right questions. And that's when he knows when to let go and when to let me, carve my own path. And that's been really critical, is giving your team the autonomy when the time is right, letting them make their own mistakes, like you said, letting them make the bold choices. And that's really been instrumental in my success here.
Thanks so much for sharing. And Deepti, I know earlier you made a comment about, your approach to leadership and making sure that it's not a one size fits all. And I see, that reflected in your story of your experience too, and having a manager who is able to understand your unique needs and when's best for, to help you out, and then when to just kind of let go and let you be. And so it's wonderful to kind of hear how that experience has translated into your leadership philosophy as well. So thank you so much for sharing that. I think what we'll do is take a moment and answer a couple of the questions that have come through in the chat. And so I'll open this up to whoever on the panel wants to take this question. But the first thing we have from Stephanie is, what advice would you give to somebody who's maybe making the transition from IT to telco? Or I guess we can broaden that question as well, just any transition. And so, this specifically is IT to telco, but it sounds, like any type of transition. And Deepti, this might be a good question for you. It sounds like you've had that experience of going.
Yeah, I will. Absolutely. So I'll speak for maybe somebody transitioning from a different industry to, let's say, technology industry, in a non-engineering role, because I have, I can speak to that experience. I would say the first and foremost thing is just be real. Acknowledge that you don't, even if you don't understand the industry, well, it's okay, because you'll be amazed to see there's so much similarity between the similar role in a different industry and technology. So whether that's product management or finance or strategy, what you should highlight is the foundational skills that are needed for you to be successful in the job, as well as the passion for the industry. I think at some point we all need the passion to learn new things. So that's what is important. Highlight, whether if it's a finance job, for example, highlight how you're good at financial modeling, or how you've applied the same principles in a different industry and what you can bring into this industry. The good thing that I would also say is, when we think of technology, honestly, that term is much more broad now. I mean, think of Bank of America. They're also hiring engineers because they want to build the best digital business. It's not just the Googles and the Juniper Networks of the world. It's everybody that is now, we call as technology. So I would bring the best from your industry as you're applying to a technology role, and just focus on your passion for learning something new and the foundational skills that you bring together.
Thank you so much, Deepti. That's great advice. We have another question that came in, and it's around mentorship. And so, Sharada, I know that, being at Juniper for over 20 years, you probably have some really influential mentors here at Juniper along your way. Would you share with us maybe who your biggest mentor is on your leadership journey and that impact?
So I have several mentors throughout my career, both at Sun Microsystems and Juniper Networks. So in Juniper, I would say my biggest mentor. I don't want to just single out one person, but I have few mentors. Like it was Chang Hong Wu, who is a group vice president. He's an architect for all our chips, and also Anurag Gupta, who is not with us anymore. He joined a startup. Those were my biggest mentors. And what I look for in a mentor is, like, I want someone I can trust, where I can, like, talk about like my unique challenges and what I want to get from them, right? So that's very important. Like, when you're having a mentor, somebody you can trust and somebody you can talk to, who can advise you on, like, how you can grow your career. And also, ironically, like, my mentors are all men, right? So because the scarcity of the women in the tech industry, so I don't see that as an impediment. In a way, it is good that, like, having your male colleagues at the mentor, you are also making them understand the unique perspectives of the challenges and everything that women engineers and women leaders face. And it's been like going pretty well, the mentoring. And also, I do want to, like, thank my managers and my VP as well for providing me constant mentorship. And when it comes to mentoring, I advise everyone to, like, just having the mentor and mentee relationship with your immediate boss is pretty important, but grow beyond your boss. Like, have, like, the relationship with, like, more people, more senior leaders in your organization who you look up to, for, like, who you respect, and then who are the visionary leaders. So you get, like, in a more different perspective, because you'll be talking to your boss anyway, and then he's guiding you, he's mentoring you, so that's given, right? So on the top of it, like, having more and more, like, broaden your like, reach, and then, like, talking to other people will also give you a better perspective. So that's what I would say.
Wonderful advice. Thank you so much, Sharada. We have one more question that I see here in the chat, and this one comes from Davey. Davey says, how do you encourage your employees that would like to transition to management, but the opportunities are not available to company organization design? For example, you have to have at least 3 reportees to have a manager title. And so I think we hear similar questions a lot where, what happens? You have somebody who's so eager to be a people manager and you want to support them, but there's just not a role available at the moment. What can you do to encourage their growth or step into some kind of leadership, knowing that there's not a role directly available for them in the immediate future? So I'll open this up to whoever would like to take it on the panel.
Yeah, so I just want to give a very brief answer to this. There are organizational constraints. Not everybody can have people reporting to them, but that does not mean that you cannot pick up some of the things that, I have a couple of people on my team who were interested in management, and they are leading small projects, which, so that gives them a flavor of what management is, and, how to lead a team. And it's much harder without people reporting to you. It's much harder to do this, accomplish anything through other people. It's harder, but you gain some skills of matrix management, you gain some skills of leadership, you gain some skills of presentation, and how to make a project successful, how to speak up to execs, how to provide status updates. So all of that you get, except the part where people are directly reporting to you, and and whenever something opens up, they're all already in the pipeline. So if that is something that they really want to do. So yes, there are constraints, and it cannot be done always, but there are ways of preparing people for it.
I would add maybe one more thing to that is, look beyond your function. Many times you can apply the same, if you want to be a people manager. For example, I'll give you example from strategy and corp dev. We have so many colleagues that have moved to product management or finance because they found the right opening, and there is a manager path. So I would say that's something that you should definitely explore. And a company like Juniper, with so many teams, so many organizations, there are a lot of opportunities like that.
Thank you both. I think that's perfect advice. Don't wait to start, getting that experience now. Find creative ways. And if you're looking for a role, don't keep your head down and just what's in front of you. Kind of expand. And Deepti, to your point that you were saying earlier, you have so many applicable skills. You just have to get creative on how they translate into those new roles or teams. So great advice. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, we talked about where you are today and what's helped you get to where you're at today. We know that there's not a shortage of challenges as well for women in technology. Do we mind sharing just what are some of the challenges that you predict or that lay ahead for women in technology? And maybe what are some of the strategies that you've used personally to overcome those challenges that you've experienced throughout your personal career? If you don't mind, maybe Sharada, we'd love to start with you.
Sure. What I would say, right, recently with all these, a lot of awareness for technology majors, even among the women, and I see that more and more women engineers are coming out of college. So at the beginners level, when you are hiring, there is a very good balance of men and women. Even though it's not at 50-50, we could see that we are getting a lot more resumes of women engineers, and things are we are able to give them preference, and then we are able to hire a lot of women engineers at the entry level positions, right? But what I see is that as you grow up, as you go up in the career ladder, whether it's a technical ladder or a management ladder, that ratio is skewed. And for example, in many of the meetings that I go to, I am the only woman sitting in a room full of male leaders. And if that's the case at the senior director level, I can only imagine how it is at the executive levels. There are probably many meetings where there is no woman representation at all, right? So that's something that needs to change. That's one of the challenges anybody who is picking a career in tech, women who is picking a career in tech, they have to understand that at some point, it gets difficult to grow up in the ladder, right? And the reason for that is that a lot of companies, it's not that they are not doing anything about it, but they're doing something, but that's not very effective. And it's better than doing nothing. For example, many companies, they send women leaders for all these leadership conferences, public speaking classes, coaching, and then they give them coaches, and they prep them to be better leaders, right? Which is all good. Without that, we wouldn't be doing as well. But once they do all of that, they send us back to the work and say that, okay, you go and fight your own battles and then become the next leader, right? And it doesn't work all the time, unless the people you are working with and also the management and everybody, they also appreciate and understand that diversity need to be there at every level, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Just having so many new college grad women engineers is not good enough. You try to have the same diversity at every level of the career ladder, right? That's something that needs to be done across the company. Either it can be done through some kind of milestones or incentives that the management's that's given to the management to improve the ratio at every level, right? So in terms of with all these challenges, how am I overcoming the challenges? I do a lot of trial and error. Some strategies have backfired and some have worked, and it is still work in progress. I don't know what exactly is going to work. And one thing I have been trying recently, for the last 3-4 years, is if you want to go to the next level, act as if you're already in that. Take on the tasks, volunteer to take on the tasks and responsibilities that are needed for that level, and try to do that, try to help out your manager. But this is a very delicate process. But when you do that, you also have to make sure that you are not stepping into the toes of your management and pissing them off and everything. So that's where having the support of your immediate managers and leaders is very important, that they need to understand why you are doing that. What are you trying to gain out of it? In that respect, I am pretty fortunate. Both my manager and my VP, Debashish Basu, they're all very supportive of me. And whatever I want to do, I want to go and try this, or I want to go to this presentation, or I want to go to this, customer briefing, they just let me go. So they don't put any barriers. So that's been working so far. That way, I'm pretty fortunate to be in this group. that I'm able to um, do more things and preparing myself for the next level. So that's what I would advise everyone. If you want to go up in the career, figure out what needs to be done at that level and start doing that in the current level itself. Hope that answers the question. So.
Yeah, thank you, Shraddha. I think you answered a lot of the questions there from, I hear just don't sit and do nothing. Try some things at least. And I love that idea of it's a little bit of trial and error. Some things work, some things don't, but it's better than not trying anything. And I love the other part of it too is yes, there's a lot of things that you can do in your personal career, but also keep leadership held accountable and find incentives for them to make sure that we're kind of diversifying our pipeline. So thank you so much for sharing those insights there. Deepti, same question.
And I just want to add to that. If possible, choose a spouse or a partner who's very supportive as well. If you still have a chance, that is. But yeah, but choose someone who supports your aspirations, who does not think your career is optional, who is always there to support you. I think that is really, really key. Also, yes.
Absolutely. Swetha, thank you so much for that. We often, we focus on just the work aspect, but, holistically, we're whole people. And so having that support there is critical. Deepti, same question for you.
Yeah, I would say in terms of challenges, I think you touched on this, Shraddha. The lack of role models, women role models in the roles that you aspire to be in is a real. Right? Even today, we don't have enough women in leadership roles, especially in technology. What that does, and to me, I mean, this is, I think, part of the reason is the stories that you tell yourself in your head. You're always telling yourself, oh, maybe I'm if you say like you get a leadership role, you're saying, oh, this is a temporary thing. I think they'll find somebody else, or I'm the number 2. I'm not the number 1. That is the biggest challenge is just what stories are you telling yourself? And it's still a work in progress for me as well, which is every time I go into a meeting or every time I have self-doubt, I just take a step back and think, is this just a story that I'm telling myself, or is there some truth to it? And you should realize that if you are in the role, which means you actually can do that, and you are the number 1, you're not the number 2, you're not there to be, it's not a temporary thing. As we get more and more women leaders in these roles, as we see role models, I think that'll pay a direct impact in giving more confidence to women who are early on in their career.
Absolutely. Such great advice, Deepti. And, I personally have to check myself all the time on what's that story that I'm telling myself. Is it true, or is my mind playing tricks on me there? So that is great advice. Looking at the clock here, I know we only have about 5 minutes. And so before completely wrapping up, I'd love to do just a quick lightning round. I know we have some people who are listening on the line who might be early in their career. And so if you could give yourself advice, your younger self advice, what would that advice be? And Shraddha, I'd love to start with you.
Okay, so I would tell myself that get out of your comfort zone and do things that you wouldn't have done otherwise. So this is something that we hear all the time, at school from our parents, and then it's like a very old age saying, right? But getting that in your mind and actually implementing it takes a lot of guts and a lot of effort, right? And it took me a while. I would just be happy with what I am doing, then I would go out of comfort zone for some time, and then I do something else, then again you're going into a constant role, right? So just doing that in a bursty fashion, once every 4-5 years, that's not going to help. You need to always look out for things and trying to always push yourself to do things that you wouldn't have done otherwise. That's my only advice. I wish I could go back and do that more often. So.
Absolutely. Well, it sounds like you've done that quite a bit, even through your storytelling. So thank you so much, Shraddha. Swetha, same question for you.
My advice to my younger self would be network, maybe. Though I've gotten better at it. Network, do not compare your trajectory with anybody else's. Everybody's circumstances are different. Do your best, whatever you're doing, and network. I think those are maybe the key takeaways for me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sweta. And Deepti, what are you telling your younger self?
Actually, I was telling the same thing that Shweta said because I was really bad at it. Do not underestimate the power of your network and the personal connections that you make. Even though they may be brief, you might not see these people every day, not even talk to them, every year. But when the time comes, they can have a significant impact on your career and your journey. And so, if you don't like networking events, I never liked them in business school. Well, find a different way. If you're better at one-on-one connections, do those, right? But it's really important to have a good network and support system.
Yeah, great point, Deepti. I'm thinking to, this virtual world that a lot of us, have come accustomed to, or at least in a hybrid sense. If you're not as comfortable going to the network events and you feel caught off guard, put that coffee chat on. You have some time to prepare some questions, and it may be a little less intimidating than, a room full of people. So great advice there.
Maybe I can say a little bit about the networking part. I mean, that's pretty important. I agree with both Shweta and Deepti. So the thing about networking is, if you go and talk to people thinking that, okay, I have to network, I have to know these people, everything gets like pretty artificial. Like, it's like you're in a transaction, you're trying to like talk to them in hope of something in return later, right? So the networking, like, if we make it look like, okay, we should not be looking at it like a chore, right? It is something you are getting to know them genuinely, be interested in what they are doing, like, try to be an acquaintance for them, and just enjoy the relationship, enjoy the company, right? Without looking for what would come in return, right? That would make it easy, that whole process. Like, just genuinely being interested in the other people and trying to know more about them. So
absolutely. Love that point of authenticity. Thank you so much, Sharada. I know that we're at our minute here, so I'm going to quickly wrap up and first just say thank you, Sharada, Sweta, Deepti. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing such fantastic advice. And thank you all on the line who have tuned in for this discussion. As a reminder, we're going to be sending out a recording of today's event along with the resources to learn more about the opportunities at Juniper Networks. And in the meantime, be sure to check out Juniper Networks profile and jobs on the Fairygodboss. Also, we'd love to hear your feedback to help us improve for future events. So please head to the Typeform tab on the right side of your screen to share your thoughts in a 1-minute survey. So thank you again to everyone, and we'll see you next time.
thanks, Kayla. Thanks for giving us this opportunity. I absolutely enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you.